Hello everyone, this is Mirror and Nuts, and today we'll be continuing our beginner-friendly Road to SCP video series, and we'll be continuing the hack the box machine, that is Beep. In the previous video, we saw two ways on how to manually exploit it, and in this video, we are going to look at another ways how to exploit this particular machine. And the reason for keeping this exploits for later is because I think it was a bit easy and there was not much to learn. So let's just quickly get started with it. So first thing, we would just go and check our web page, which we had seen earlier, the VTiger one, right? We already had it confirmed that VTiger CRM 5.1.0 was present, the version number. So we found a LFI vulnerability in that, and so this is the LFI vulnerability which looks like this. So we did a search exploit and it gave us some exploit and it had a text file and it had this particular line of URL present over there. So that's how we got the etc password file. So first thing, obviously we got a password file and we could get multiple other files as well, right? So now once when you open up this web page, okay, you just go to 10.10.7 and we come up with this elastic web page, right? And it says something like this licensed under something like that, but we don't have the version number present over here. Okay, so we don't have any version number present, and also we had seen that GoBuster had given us a directory which is admin, and we go into that. It says like for some authentication we cancel it, and we come across this free PBX thing, right? So we come across this unauthorized page over here. So and it shows us the version number. So using this free PBX, we actually had one exploit done using the extension number. So we have two web applications over here. One is free PBX and one is this Elastic web page, right? So probably first thing, what we should do is we should just go and check for any configuration files of that application, because configuration files usually have passwords present in it. Okay, so sometimes they have it in obviously encrypted or hash format, but sometimes they are in plain text as well. So let's just quickly go and look at it. So first we'll do as elastics. So we can just mention password file location as well, because obviously there's a web page running, so it will be having particular passwords and everything. So we go to the web page over here and we check if there are any password file present. So if we see that there's some user asking for some help over here, and he says there's some other user replying, and it says like you have to edit some file which is like etc portal conf. So probably just try these files, and there's one more file over here which says set password for this SQL thing, and over here also it says like set your password over here, and then edit this file, set the password, and then or edit this file and set the password for asterisk user. So what we'll do is we'll look at these two directories now. So this basically is a configuration file, right, conf, and it's present inside this etc folder. So let's just quickly copy this and paste it over here where our LFI was present. So we'll just do that. Okay, we'll remove this, don't need that. And we come across this file present over here. Okay, so it looks like a mess. So what we'll do is just view page source, and we see that we have multiple things present over. It says like some host, engine, name, asterisk, MySQL host, asterisk user. It says again asterisk. It gives us some password over here. It says DB password. Okay, so we have some password over here from the file etc am portal conf. Okay, so we have a password over here. I don't know which user it belongs to. Most likely it looks like it belongs to this asterisk user because it's present over here, DB user and DB password. So let's see further. It says engine again, asterisk user admin pass. Okay, so it says admin user again over here. So this is the same password. Okay, exactly similar, but it says user is admin over here. Okay, and if you guys check over here itself, there are multiple. The same password has been repeated at multiple places. Okay, so there are like 4 matches in this particular file itself. So this is one file which we looked for, and we just had a quick Google search for password file location. So the other file which we can look for is over here. Okay, so it says cdr mysql conf, that is inside the asterisk folder. So just quickly copy it and paste it over here. Okay, and hit enter. So there's another SQL file, configuration file which is there. It says hostname localhost, DB name as this asterisk, and it says the password. So if you see, the password is the same as what it was before. So let's just quickly go and save the password. Let's just copy it and paste it in our cherry tree. Oops. Okay. So this is the password from the MySQL conf file. If you see, it's exactly the same. Both the password files are same. So this is one for Elastic, right? So for Elastic, we found it. So I think it is more than sufficient. But I just want to show you all more that since we came inside a web page, which is like that free PBX. Okay, so let's just try and Google out things for this as well. So we just go. So we check out over here, and there's some user who gives us some solution, like basically for that actual user who will ask something. So it says that your by default the password is located in the manager configuration file. Okay, and it says like the first part is admin is the username, second secret is the password. Okay, so let's just quickly go and look at this file as well. First, let's see if this file is available. And we do that, take etc, and we see that we have some file available over here, and it says like admin user is admin. As mentioned over here, it says the first part, this is admin, then secret as the password. So if you look closely, it says obviously this is the username and secret as the password. So it looks like the same password which was available earlier as well, like the amongst this. Okay, so let's just quickly copy that, paste it. So this is the same password present for all three of them, right? So whenever you have a password, you just try to log in first, and you guys can probably go and log in into the web application. Okay, so you can probably try that, and the password works over there. The other thing what you can do is if you look at the scan results, the full TCP Nmap scan, there are multiple ports open, right? And one of the ports which is port 22, and that is SSH service is running over here. So that means we can log in into the target machine using SSH. Okay, so probably we first try and log in using SSH. We'll do SSH, and we'll have to give a username. So we don't have the user, like we obviously have, we found the username list, but for now we'll just leave it as it. We'll just fill out the target IP address, that is 10.10.7. Okay, and we need the username now. So what we'll do for the username, we already had the password, etc password file, right? So we have the list of users. Well, let's just take this, copy it, create, okay, and paste it. Okay, so we have this user list over here. So now we'll just go and quickly look at the users which are able to log in. So over here, see, if you guys see, sorry, if you guys notice, it says no login, right? It says has been no login, been no login, multiple no logins are present. It says something like shutdown over here. And there are very few bin bash over here. The one which you are looking for is bin bash. Probably we can and try and log in into them using SSH. So these are the ones which we can log in properly. So since there are multiple users, right, around 35 users, so you can probably obviously go manually and check. Okay, root belongs to has bash. Then the user. This guy MySQL has bash. You can probably do it manually, but it is time consuming, right? So best way what you can do is you can just cat the go to the directory first. Okay, cd users.txt. Sorry. So this is the password file which we found, right? So what we'll do now is we just want the lines which has bash present. So obviously you guys may be familiar with grep, right? So you do grep and bash. So what this is the pipe command, right? So it is piping two of the what you say commands which we are giving. So first it will execute this, and after executing this, it is gonna pipe it. That means you have to pipe it with the second command. So that means the grep for bash. That means first it will open this file using cat users.txt. Then it will check for only bash commands which are present, and it will display those lines only. Okay, so if you do grep bash, so it shows the lines which has bash present. It has bash over here, 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 here. Okay, so if you just see for root, we don't need bash, we just need root now. It will just show you the lines which has root in it. So I know you guys obviously may be very aware of what grep actually does. So just wanted to say this since it is a beginner friendly series. So this is how grep actually works. So if you do grep for asterisk user as well, so it gives you this one line itself, because in the other lines asterisk is not present, right? Okay, so now we see over here in our grep the bash text, we have multiple users over here, that is 6 users. So first we'll just look at asterisks, because earlier also we in the okay, just forget about that earlier part, like the earlier two exploits which we did, because this is a new exploit. Let's just try a new methodology. We don't have any information about the system from the previous exploits whichever we did. But as we can see early in this particular files over here, it says, there were like few files which said like the user is asterisk or something. Okay, see asterisk db name, asterisk user over here. So let's just try it with asterisk and see. We'll use the SSH for that. You just in order to SSH into the system, you just use SSH and the username, that is asterisk, sorry, and it will wait for some time. Then you have to feed in the password. So I'll just copy this. It's probably take some time to load over here. Don't need this, just close it. Okay, so it's asking for password. Let's feed the password in. So time it says password deny. I'm actually pasting it. Okay, so the password does not work for this user over here. So what we'll do is we'll go, ascending order. We'll check for root, MySQL, and everything, and we'll see whom does this password belong to. If the password does not belong to anybody else, obviously you have to look at some other place, right? But whenever you get a password, try and log in into multiple things. If you don't get if you don't get SSH successful, you can go to the web application, try different things over there. So that's how the whole idea flows. But first thing, we got the password, try and try and to use it with this SSH. Okay, so let's just quickly go and check. Okay, root. Okay, so we paste the password. And we see that we have access over here and we are in the system as root. Okay, so if you guys check, we are in this target machine, we are in beep and we are as root. It mentions over here as well, but yeah, just saying. So we are in the system as root, and obviously you all can just quickly go and get out the user and root flags over here. We can very well read it because obviously we are as root, and we can read this root text. Okay, so this is how there's another way of exploiting. It's very easy. And another thing what I just want to tell you all is that if you go to search exploit and do elastics, okay, so you first thing, obviously you all came up across this web page which says, it said elastic, right? Elastic has come over. So first thing what obviously anybody would do is use exploit and check for elastic. But since we did not have any version number over here, and there are multiple exploits, okay, and if I'm just thinking like OSCP point of view, so if there are multiple exploits and there are some other web applications as well, so instead of not having a definitive version number where you can go and probably check for the exploit, it would be like wasting time, right? And try and do all this thing. And sometimes it does happen that probably one exploit over here, suppose this blind SQL works, okay, it is actually the working exploit, but for some reason it does not execute on the first time itself. Okay, so it can be hit and miss, right? You can probably try and execute things in order to get it right. So there are multiple things which has to be done. So that's why I did not recommend, like I do not like I myself would not recommend it for myself, and to check out this until unless this is the last option. Like there are no web application, you did not find any vulnerabilities present. Like so, obviously you have to come and you have to do this itself. It's not that you can skip it. So you can probably last option is that you can do this, but first obviously try and enumerate more and try to get more useful information. So other thing is, if we just probably try and catch this particular file, local file inclusion, just copy it over here. I already had it downloaded, I guess. So once we check out this file, here also it says that Elastic version has some vulnerability in this vTiger graph or something like that. Okay, so let's just quickly copy it and paste it over here itself. Okay, and just press enter. And we see that there is LFI present over here itself. And if you see the location, it's vtigergraph.php, right? And the previous one which we saw from vtiger definitive 5.1.0 vulnerability, sorry, yeah, the version's vulnerability, we found that it is in vtiger modules com vtiger flow. It's totally different. Both these LFIs are different, but they are present in different locations. So obviously you can go over here as well and check out for the password file, right? So another thing what I would like to note over here and stress, like whenever they have mentioned some, location, right, and they have added some more, parameters over here, which is like module and action or something. So try not to mess with it and try not to delete it. I'll show you what happens if I remove these parameters. It does not give you an LFI over here. Okay, so this is what happens if you remove the 0 as well. It does not give you an LFI. So try not to mess with those things. So now if you hit enter, it would actually give you the result. So that's why keep it as it is. And in the previous exploit also we saw this null byte, right? The null present over here. So we just left it as it is. Okay. So that's how LFI is present over here itself, and it can be executed and try to, and it actually gives you a hint over here. etc aim portal, not hint exactly, it actually gives a configuration file location. So if you hit that and then you come across this particular file, right? And the ones which we saw, we got the password over here. So it is as simple as that, but you never know that which version it is running and if it is vulnerable or something. But you guys can try or try to find out on Google itself, like where is this password file or configuration file present. Okay, so now this is the third way how to do this box. The last way is, when you check out this particular ports over here, there are multiple ports and everything. And also there's one more way which I found somehow, like I could not properly execute it. So I just probably try to look into it more later. It is in a, you have to go in a directory, and there also probably there, it's like, you can have an RFI done. So I was successfully able to call a file but not execute it using RFI. So that's why I did not want to include that in the video. Probably I'll check and test, and if it executes, that's good. Okay, so we'll be looking at another exploit over here for, we'll be looking at another port, that is port 10,000, which is running miniserv and webmin. So obviously first thing what you would do is use exploit and use webmin, and we have location over here mentioned is 1.570, and there is only 580 over here, and it says remote command execution metasploit, and we don't want to use this probably. So we don't have a definitive version number over here itself. So probably you can go on Google as well and search for that particular web application if there's some vulnerabilities present. Or you can, the server over here is like miniserv something is running, right? So let's just look at that as well. Okay. Okay, I think miniserv. So we do not get any results for this, and so that's why I don't think it was much useful. So what we'll do is first we'll just quickly go and look at the particular web application itself. So in order to check it out, in order to check it out on the port 10,000, we'll have to provide the port number manually, because it is by default HTTPS is 443 and HTTP is 80. So we'll probably have to give this 10,000 over here, because then only it will redirect us to that that page. So see, we have some webmin page over here. We enter admin, and you enter the password as admin itself. It says login failed, please try again. And then later on it gave us some file over which says CGI file. Earlier this file was not present. Like when I tried to log in over here, see, if I try to log in, it does not show me this. But when I enter admin, and I try to log in, then it will show me a file over here, right? Okay, it says access denied because too many authentication failures. Probably I got blocked for logging in. But it gave me this file location over here which says CGI present, right? So one thing about CGI file is that it is wherever CGI is present. Okay, so CGI file is present, or probably there's a CGI bin folder. So probably it's most likely vulnerable to shell shock vulnerability. Okay, you guys can probably go and Google on that, how the web server is vulnerable to shell shock. So CGI is present. So one thing what I would do is I would try and run an nmap script which says, that if that port is particularly vulnerable or no, the service. But I did run the nmap scan and I could not find anything. Yeah, I just gave the all P port, but you obviously can just give this, and you can give the NAC script, that is nmap script for this. So probably just take this and you can run it as well. I don't want to run it because obviously, as you guys can see, I've already executed the scan and it did not give me any vulnerability over here. So it just says normal scan, it did service scan. It did not find any vulnerability, it did not show up any vulnerability. So that this is another reason why that you don't have to focus mainly on these scans and everything, vulnerability scanners, that there will be multiple vulnerabilities present which can be exploited manually. Okay, so what we'll do is, first thing, we have this the session ID page, right? We had the session ID page. We'll just look at it in Burp. So I'd already pre-configured Burp over here, and if you guys want to know how to do that, you go to your browser and just check for this manual proxy configuration. Like, it will be no proxy by default, so you have to just do manual proxy configuration and click this use proxies of all protocols. So it will include this SSL as well, so for HTTPS. And then you will give this IP address is your localhost IP address. Okay, my attack machine's IP address, localhost. So, and this is your the port number. Okay, so this is what you got to enter over here, the same exact thing. Once you enter that, go to Burp. Already this thing will be listing, so it will be running already in same port, same IP address. So you don't have to change anything over here. Just make sure it's running, and then obviously put this interceptor off. If you keep the interceptor on, so I'll just show you all what happens. So it actually came up to Burp, but see what happens over here. It will keep loading. It will keep loading. Because what is happening is it is waiting for Burp to like shut it down, right? So once I put it off, so it will load the web page. So now it's loaded, right? Okay. So what we I just keep it off and I'll go to HTTP history and I'll just take this session login CGI form, because this is the one which we are looking for, right? The URL. We are not looking at this unauthenticated and all this kind of things over here. We are looking for the session login CGI. So we check this out, we check the response, we do not find anything useful over here. So what I'll do is I'll send it to repeater, and this is how we get our page over here. And one thing what I would do is have to check for shell shock vulnerability. First thing is I'll just try and Google. So Google is your friend for each and everything, right? So you can find everything online, and obviously the OSCP exam also focuses much on that, like POCs and public exploits and everything. Okay, so let's just quickly go and check. Just check this. There are a couple of videos as well which show you how to exploit shell shock. And to get a better understanding, probably you all can go through this article of shell shock, like how the vulnerability is present on the web server, and how you can probably try and execute that vulnerability. So it says something like, hey, curl agent, it says user agent, and add something over here so that it is going to make things vulnerable. Okay, so just to quickly make things better and simpler to understand, it says something like in your HTTP headers. Okay, so since in Burp over here, we all these are headers. Sorry, all these are headers, right? The host, user agent, accept language, accept encoding. All these are called as HTTP headers. Okay, so if you see over here in headers, so all these are called HTTP headers. So you enter these headers so that it redirects you to that particular web server will understand, okay, what is this, what is that, and everything. Okay, so this is how it actually works. The HTTP headers, the browser also will be able to send proper request. So it says something like, in the header, if you craft this particular line over here, and then you can add a, what do you say, remote command execution over here. It's as simple as that. Obviously, it does not work in each and every headers and web page. It only works when shell shock vulnerability is present. And this is how the exploit is going to work. So it's as simple as breaking the script. So probably it's terminating something over here. Okay, and then later on you can probably have a remote command execution. It's like somewhat like SQL. So how do we terminate it, right? The SQL script, we terminate terminate it, and then we write our own script like or 1 is equal to 1 or something like that. So it's just as simple as that, I guess, and that's how we are going to run this exploit. So what we'll do is we'll just take this and quickly we'll just copy paste. I don't think we need the other part. We'll just take this part. Okay, we'll copy it and we'll go to burp, and we can put it anywhere, I guess. Like you can put it on the user agent. Don't put it on the host, obviously, because otherwise it will not know where to go. And probably you can use the referrer itself, like what was present over there, or you can use it on user agent as well. So we put that. Okay, make sure this spacing is accurate. Okay, so if you don't put any spaces, I was not able to execute that command. So just put the spaces, because over here, if you guys can see, there's one space over here, right? So always be careful of with all this nitty gritty things at times. So sometimes we miss up, and then we are trying and adding multiple commands over here. Command 1 2 3 4, we just go on adding commands and we don't get anything. Because why? Because there's a blank line, like there was no space over here. So that's why just make sure you have a space over here. Well and good. What we'll do is, in order to test remote command execution always where we don't have any output, what we can do is we can just try and set up a TCP dump. So if you guys don't know what TCP dump is, TCP dump is just like Wireshark. It's going to sniff packets coming into your attack machine, that is my Kali machine, and it will check, like whether this target system, this beep box, did send me an ping request or no. Okay, so that's how we are going to try. We'll use I switch and we'll give tunnel 0, because this is the hack the box VPN connection, and we'll be giving the ICMP packet because I just want to check out for ICMP. Okay, then we have to run it as sudo, otherwise it will not work. So we have to run it as root, in short. Okay, so we are listening over here. Now what I'll do is I'll just quickly go and type a ping command. Since it is a Linux box, so I'll just give -c, and I just want to ping it once probably. Okay, just once, and I'll give my IP address. Okay, so this thing I have not created anything on my own. This is the well-known format, I think, for shell shock vulnerabilities. You have to add this over, if you guys can see, and over here also the same thing is present. It's like some magic formula or something like that. So probably just leave that aside, and then you add your command execution lines. So 1420 is my IP address, attack machine's IP address. Okay, so I'll just we have a TCP dump listening. So let's just see if we have a command execution. And we see that we have a ping packet which is coming over here. 10.10.7 is sending a ping packet ICMP echo request, which sends over here. Okay, that is our attack machine's IP address, and attack machine obviously will be sending a reply, because whenever they ping, obviously we'll send a reply, right, if we are active or up that way. So that's how the Nmap scan also works. If you guys want to check it out, you probably can go and check out how Nmap works. Okay, so this is how this entire thing happened, right? And we got the command execution done over here, ping command. Now obviously we have ping command execution. What is the next thing we'll do is that we'll try and add a pentest monkey reverse shell. The one liner bash shell, you can probably do that. Okay, so we have this bash shell over here. We'll just copy it and we'll paste it. Okay, so you don't have to URL encode anything over here, because this is that HTTP headers, right? And if you see over here the referrer, it actually shows you something like this. The header is going to go like this. It's not a parameter on the for the get request, or this is post over here. There's no parameter, so you don't have to URL encode it or something. Just leave it as it is, and add your IP address. So that, okay, 20. Now what is the next thing I would do is I'll obviously I'll just close this. I don't need this anymore. So I'll just set up a netcat listener over here in VLP. Okay, just wait for it. Okay, and now we double check it and we see if we get some connection. We send the request. Okay, we get some connection over here, and we see that we are already in the system as root, and we do ifconfig and name. Okay, so we get the host name as beep, we get the ifconfig over here as this. This is the target machine's IP address. So that means we are in the system as root over here, and this is how this whole webmin thing was. So how we got root is because probably this web server over here is running as root. This web service over here, it's running as root. It's miniserve. So probably it's running as root over here, and that's how we got root access. Okay, so this was all. The video was about exploiting two things. I know Shellshock that every time it's not gonna work. There'll be particular vulnerable web service and so something like that, which is gonna work. And thank you for watching the video. And if you guys did like it, so leave a thumbs up and do subscribe for more upcoming videos. Okay, thank you.